Carly. Welcome back to High Country Homesteading. Today I want to discuss cooking with farm fresh eggs. So, as you know, we have chickens this year. We got a couple of chickens back in February, and we had 6 more delivered to us in April. So, majority of our egg laying hens are about 6 months old, and we have two that are a little bit older. But we have 8 hens currently, and 7 out of the 8 hens are laying eggs. And so this is a new concept for us, having an abundance of eggs. We finally, a couple of weeks ago, stopped buying eggs from the grocery store, and we fully now have an abundance of eggs that need to start being used up. And this was something that I anticipated. I knew that we were going to start having more eggs than we've ever eaten before, and we're going to need to figure out how to use them and not let them go to waste. So today I'm going to show our favorite sweet and savory way that we've been using up our eggs, and uses a good amount of eggs in each session. And certainly the first one that I'm going to do, and it's definitely my young children's favorite, is I'm going to be doing French toast. French toast 2 ways. And I like French toast because it does take up a good amount of eggs. So what I'm first doing here is I'm going to take about 10 eggs. And the thing about chicken eggs is that, typically at the store you would buy a carton and it would say large or extra large of the size. Well, chickens don't lay the same size egg every day. And when you have chickens that are in different stages of their laying, some will be smaller, some will be bigger. So not everything's considered large. So it's a little bit of a guessing game, but my rule of thumb is I like to do about 1 egg per piece of bread. And for my small family, for a big breakfast, we're probably doing about 10 pieces of bread to make our French toast. So I have about 10 eggs in here. I think I might have done anywhere from 10 to 12 based on the size. But I'm just scrambling those up with a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of heavy whipping cream, and then I'm also going to shake in a bit of cinnamon. And that's all you need for the kind of custard creation that you're creating here for the French toast. So the great thing about French toast is that you can do it 2 different ways. This is the way that I grew up making it, but I will show you a second way that's a little bit of a time or effort saver. So I'm just mixing all these ingredients together, and the way I like to make French toast is take my skillet on the oven, just put it on a medium to low heat because it gets pretty hot, and I'm going to throw in some coconut oil to start covering the pan and melting. And then when that gets good and melted, I'm going to start dipping my pieces of bread into the egg mixture. Typically, what you should use to make a really good French toast is a brioche, but I typically either make with brioche or sourdough depending on what's been made. But I'm going to pop those into the cast iron skillet, give it a good flip after a minute or two, make sure that I don't burn, and then that's really all it takes. And my favorite way to serve French toast, it's what my parents always did for me, is pop them onto a plate and sprinkle on a little bit of brown sugar, and then of course drizzle on some maple syrup. You could see why this is a kid's favorite. You could always go with some kind of fruit jam or fruit syrup, or even make some kind of whipped cream to go on top. That would always be good, but I like mine super sweet and just straight to the point. But another way that you can do this, maybe if you have a big crowd, is rip your pieces of bread into pieces, put it in the cast iron skillet, again with a little bit of that coconut oil so there's no sticking, and then you pour the same mixture over the bread. Let it mix in and sit for a while so that everything gets covered with the egg mixture, and then all we're going to do is pop this into a 350-degree oven for about 20 minutes is really all you need. So I'm going to pop that into the oven, and then after 20 minutes you get pretty much the same exact result, except it's in a much bigger and servable way instead of tending to each singular piece. So just depends if maybe you have a crowd and you need to make a larger amount and you don't want to tend to each single piece by itself. But all you have to do is just serve this up like a casserole and drizzle some maple syrup on top of it, and there you go. For my favorite savory way to use up a bunch of eggs, I'm going to make a quiche. I love quiche so much, and it's a great way to use an abundance of eggs, especially because it's so simple to cook up multiple at one time and then freeze your extra and have that for later. They're really good at reheating. It's just the same as basically heating up a pie. And I'm going to start by making the pie crust. So I have my food processor here, and I'm going to add in first 2.5 cups of organic all-purpose flour. And that's going to be the base of our pie crust. To the flour in the food processor, I'm going to cut up some cold butter. If you're going to do unsalted, then you're going to need to add a little bit of salt, but this happened to be salted butter, so I didn't need to add any salt to it. But try to make sure that your butter is as cold as possible. Don't leave it out on the counter while you're waiting around and doing other things. So pie crust is so easy. It's just flour and butter, and then we're going to be adding in about 1/2 cup of ice water, a little bit at a time. So I'm just going to add my ice water very slowly to the top of my food processor and let that come together just a little bit. It doesn't need to be overly mixed, and it only takes a couple of minutes. But once that's done, all blitzing together, then I'm going to take it out of the food processor, put it on my countertop, and I'm going to just start kneading that together until it comes together in a nice ball, which I'm going to split into two because I'm going to make 2 quiches today. So while I'm getting all the ingredients ready for the filling of the quiche, I'm going to go ahead and wrap these in plastic wrap and put them in my fridge. Because of that butter in there, we want to keep these as cold as possible. So I'm going to wrap these up, let them sit in my fridge while I make the filling for both of the quiches. And for the filling today, my favorite quiche is we're going to be sauteing some onions, some spinach, and some bacon together. And we're also going to be shredding some Gruyere cheese and throwing that in as well. So this is my favorite flavoring of quiche. You can do absolutely anything. You can cook up some ham, do different types of cheeses. I love that you can throw anything into a quiche. Peppers and tomatoes from the garden if you had them. So that's why I love quiche, because you can make so many at a time. I could have easily made 4 pie crusts and it wouldn't have taken any more effort. And then just do all different kinds of flavorings and then pop them in your freezer and you can have them over the next couple of months. So quiche is so easy, but I'm going to chop all of these things up quickly, just doing a rough chop. And then we're going to go back to the skillet on our stovetop. Use the same skillet, put in a little bit of oil, and the bacon's going to release a lot of oil too. So you really don't need much, but that's going to help everything saute together nicely. My rule of thumb for quiche is typically doing 4 eggs per 1 cup of milk. And like I said, because these aren't all considered large eggs, I think I have about 10 eggs here between the two quiches. So just eyeball it, vary in size, but I do 4 large eggs typically per 1 cup of milk. And you can do 1 cup of whole milk, or like I'm going to do in a little while, I'm doing half whole milk and half heavy whipping cream. And it just provides such a nice fluffy texture to the inside of the quiche when mixed up with the eggs. So I'm going to mix all those things together, and then once that's done and everything is finished sauteing on our stove top, we're going to bring our pie crusts back out, and we will start filling everything up and throwing it into the oven. I'm going to be using 9-inch across glass pie dishes, and you'll see that this amount of dough that I've made fits across both of those perfectly. Make sure that you take a little time to push all of the dough into your pie dish. You don't want to make any air pockets or bubbles where you don't need them, so make sure that you press everything firmly against the sides so that everything bakes up really nicely. When you first get chickens, you think to yourself, well, I only have so many people in my family. For example, I have four, and two of them are really little, so they don't eat that much. So you think, well, I should probably only get 3 or 4 chickens. That would provide more than enough eggs for us throughout the week. But you can never, in my experience, just get 3 or 4 chickens. They, even when you purchase them online, there's always a minimum of 6. So you're like, okay, well, I guess I'll have 12 chickens. And then you end up with this abundance of eggs that could feed more than your family. And one of the great things that I knew I would want when we first got chickens is to be able to provide some for our friends and neighbors. And so we've been able to do that. But having some ways in mind before you get chickens on how you're going to eat your eggs is a really smart idea. So it's definitely helped me cook more. And we do a lot of breakfast, lunch, and dinner of scrambled eggs, scrambled egg with cheese, and a side of sausage and fruit. We eat that kind of meal all the time, and it's the quickest, easiest thing, especially with toddlers. So you don't have to go out and make the quiche or make the French toast every time. A good old scramble typically takes up another 10 eggs in our house. So it's a great, easy way to get rid of eggs quickly. And it's also a super healthy and good for you dish to get all of that protein. So I haven't had trouble using up our eggs yet. I know if we had any more chickens, we would probably have a problem not keeping up. But so far, the 8 laying hens that we have and 1 rooster are really good for us. I've popped these quiche in the oven at 350 degrees for about 45 minutes. They were ready. I'm poking it with a fork and it's not super wet on the inside, so I know that this is ready, and my crust edge on the outside isn't burnt. If you happen to need more time and your crust is getting a little bit brown, same as a pie, just pop some tin foil over the crust while you let it cook a little bit more. But this one turned out perfectly, and it's the perfect savory dish to use up a bunch of your eggs. So thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, I would love you considered subscribing and hit that subscribe button, where we're going to do a lot more cooking from scratch as the gardening season's coming to an end. But let me know down below in the comments, if you have a big basket of eggs like this, what would you cook with them? I'd love to know if you have any of your favorite recipes. So let me know down in the comments, and I will see you next time.